Kenya's president has ordered parastatals to agree to a 20% pay cut or have their jobs taken up by other Kenyans at a lower rate in order to tame the ballooning wage bill. Now, the wage bill is said to be unsustainable and poses a risk to the fiscal health of the East African nation as it swelled by about 20% in the last 3 years. Well, for an update on this, I'm joined by Beatrice Gachenge. Beatrice, thanks for making the time to join us. You heard about this development at the National Wage Bill Dialogue. Was this a surprise?
Well, thank you, Tumisho. It came as a surprise when the president said that he ordered all the parastatal heads, about 100, about 100 of them, to actually give up 20% of their pay. And the fact is not, what came as a surprise is not the fact that he required them to pay the 20%, but the fact that he said they can either quit or go to the courts, but the point was that they needed to give up the 20% in order to tame the very large wage bill. And if you recall, last Friday we had the executive, and I'm talking about the president and his deputies, saying that they'll give up 20% of their pay, while the ministers, which is equivalent to what we call the cabinet secretaries, as well as the deputies, they came up with a 10% decrease on their pay. So for the government to now come up and say that they need more cuts coming out of other participants in the government is a big step forward, looking at how they can manage the wage bill. And I would like to read a quote that he said with regards to the parastatal heads, where he said, "And let me assure you that if you fail to do so, there are many other Kenyans who are ready and willing to take up the jobs at that lower rate." So it's coming as a very stout warning to the parastatal heads.
Definitely something we'll be looking out for. Maybe, let's talk about that wage bill, because it's said to be ballooning. When you look at Kenya's wage bill relation to other sub-Saharan countries, how does it fare? Is it really as big as they're saying it is?
Well, it is. If you look at the numbers don't lie. If you look at Kenya's wage bill to GDP, that is a gross domestic product, we have it at 13%. If you look at sub-Saharan economies, most of them are ranging at between 6, 7, and 8%. And the international benchmark is about 7%. So if you look at that number, Kenya is actually double if you compare to Sub-Saharan Africa and also the international market. And now if you draw closer to the East African region, Kenya is actually the highest. If you compare to countries such as Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania, Rwanda sits at about 3.9% to GDP. You have Tanzania also at about 6.3% and Uganda at 3.9%. So Kenya is way above those limits.
What have been some of the adverse effects due to this huge wage bill?
Well, the economists are saying that one of the major issues that we're likely to face as a country is actually crowding out resources for development projects. Because if you look at the national budget, we have wage bills coming in at 47% of the total budget going towards the wage bill. That means you're only left with nearly, 20% to do development projects, and that is not nearly enough. If you look at the many energy needs that we have for the country, the infrastructural needs that we have for the country, you cannot now just develop a country at such a marginal rate. And if you look also at government-funded projects, about 2 years ago it was about 6.5%, and now it has reduced to about 5%. So you're looking at a challenge when it comes to fiscal position of the country, and also the health of the country when it comes to development expenditure.
Let's talk about whether or not this was the right approach. You've seen the likes of President Joyce Banda, who's taken a very strong stance when it comes to spending. But President Kenyatta, it sounded somewhat like a warning. Was this the right approach?
Well, I would say it's a step in the right direction, though many analysts have come up and said that this is just a drop in the ocean, because there's just so much money that is being lost in the value chain if you look at tax loopholes. So there's still much more that needs to be done. Also looking at government expenditure, you're looking at travel allowances and other allowances that we have when it comes to fuel expenditure. So there are quite a number of other things that also need to be looked at, as well as looking at the salaries. Salaries is just one of them. But when you look at some of the other issues like tax evasion, those are some of the other things that the government also needs to seal some of those